So now that we have all these pieces, to make it a little bit more realistic, what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to try to make some really quick wires that come out from the back of this receiver and lead into these speakers. And to do that, we're going to be using some lofts. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lot of planes to actually achieve this. So let's go ahead and go into the front view. We're going to copy a plane off of this. Drag that across. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just start one right off the back of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a sketch. I'm going to use this circle. Now for this portion, we're going to want to use dimensions, so that chord is the same thickness the entire time. So let's go ahead and do a smart dimension. Let's say 0.35. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make one on this plane. Go ahead and exit out of that first one. Give myself a top view. I can see that first one over here, and I want to make the second one leading into the direction that I want it to go. So I'm going to go ahead, put one about here. And again, use that smart dimension. We want it all the same thickness. 0.35. You can go ahead and exit out of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to a back view. We're going to select one of these planes to make another sketch. What we're going to use is a spline to give this curvature, and it'll follow these lines essentially. Actually, I think let's go ahead and let's do a side view. You can usually use different planes to achieve that, but I think for this one we should use a side view. So let's go ahead and do that. Make a quick little spline. And come back in here and tidy it up a little bit. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and use the loft tool. We're going to deselect that. We're going to pick our circles. Now what we're going to use is a center line. Go ahead and find that curve that we made. Make sure we're not merging this. It's going to be a different material in the end. And then we have the beginning of our first chord. So let's go ahead and let's keep doing this until we have ourselves a chord that goes all the way to the speaker. We're going to build right off of where we ended for each one. So go ahead and convert that into a sketch. We're going to go ahead and make another plane. We need to exit that sketch, sorry. Go ahead and do a circle on this plane. We're going to want to go into a side view for this. Just making sure it's going in the right direction. So we're going to make it a little bit higher. Again, use a smart dimension at 0.35. Go ahead and exit out. Now we're going to use one of those front planes, so it doesn't really matter which one. So we're going to go ahead and make a spline on this, connecting it to those two circles. So make sure you pick both of them, and after you make that spline, you can play with it, finesse it to the appropriate shape that you want. Go ahead and try to make that look as tangent as possible. It's alright if it has a few kinks in it, and go ahead and make that one look tangent as well. And play with all the parameters of the spline to get it to where you want. Go ahead and exit out of that. Then we're going to come over and loft this. We're going to deselect that spline. We want to use it as a center line instead of a guide curve. And we're going to pick our circles. Get the first one. Go ahead and find the second one. And then pick the second one. And it looks like we put those in the guide curves. We got to make sure we pick the profiles when doing that. So let's go back and hit the first one. Select the second one. And now we're going to scroll down and go into that center line parameters and pick our spline, which will give us the curvature of that wire. And then we're going to go down and make sure we select our first section. We want to make this one continuous solid piece. So go ahead, hit OK. And then after this, we're going to do the same process again. So go back up there to the flat of the end of the wire, select it, and open up a sketch there. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to pick that edge and convert it into a sketch. So let's get that edge. Go ahead and hit convert. Hit OK. And then you can exit out of that sketch. So from there, now what we're going to do is we're going to put ourselves in a side view. And we want to open up another plane where this is going to end. We're going to make our final circle there for our wire to continue to and finally end at the speaker. So let's go ahead, let's go to a back view. We're going to make a circle on that plane. And again, we're going to make that our 0.35 dimension. Make sure it's all one continuous size. Go ahead and type in 0.35. Hit OK. And you can exit out of that sketch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into a top view to finish this wire off. We're going to use a spline from any plane that's pointing downward. So go ahead and open up a spline. Again, making sure that the spline is going into the sketches that we have picked. So going from one circle to the other, and then going in there and really finessing the curvature of that spline. Go ahead and make that look pretty tangent. And that looks pretty good. So go ahead and exit out of that sketch. And then again, we're going to be using the loft tool to finish this off. So let's go ahead and hit loft, deselect that spline out of the guide curve, find our circle sketches. There's the first one. There's our second one. And then we're going to scroll down to that center line parameters and pick our spline. And then go down and make sure you're connecting this to the rest. So go ahead and pick that. Hit OK. And then we should have a continuous wire. And that looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mirror. So go ahead, pick a plane that you want to mirror. You want to deselect that out of the features. Make sure you're picking the bodies and hit OK. And now that looks pretty good. Now we have two wires coming out of the back of the receiver and are coming up to both of the speakers.